is that I also had to sit back in my older years and recognize that a lot of it had to do with my emotions, had to do
Absolutely.
with my feelings, right? Because I wanted to have that control. It wasn't because I didn't necessarily trust him and his parental guidance or what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have that control over the situation. And so I only bring that up to point out to Annie, and her point is, you can say whatever you like to him, but you saying, oh, well, he refuses to listen to you, he's still her father. At the end of the day, he is still her father, and he has a right to make some decisions just as much that you have a right to make decisions.
You know,
Ask yourself, are you acting out of feelings or are you acting rationally?
and that's the thing. We have to learn to think intellectually and not emotionally. But I will say that if, and I don't know how you feel because obviously you're not the same person you was back then. But if you and her from the beginning, when your child's father started this relationship, or when he realized, hey, now this is the woman I'm going to marry, if you two did have that sit down and you established what you expect out of her as a
No.
filly, as a stepmom, you couldn't do it back then. But I'm just saying, for these two, that's what they wanted. They wanted to be able to sit down, the three of them, so they could establish, listen, this is what we expect, or the mama could say, this is what I expect. And a lot of times we are speaking out of emotion, and we do want to hold on to that control. But I think the control kind of goes away when you establish that relation with somebody. And I can speak, like I said, I can speak now from experience because my children have a stepmom who's very much involved in their life, very much involved in my grandson's life. You know what I mean? But she doesn't overstep. She knows our mom and grandma, but my children can call her at any given time. And I have to let go of the control also because I'm living in Jamaica. She's in Bermuda with my daughter and grandson. So if something happens, I can't get to my daughter faster than she can. So we have to be able to say, listen, if this woman is going to be in our child's life, we have to let go of some of this control we feel as mothers. Well, it's gonna be mama. I know for my daughters, it ain't no one in this world that could take my place. I am mama. We are each other's world. But I had to allow, listen, she's a good person. She's there. She's not some girl that's trying to be fake. So my daughter's like her. She honestly loves my kids. So we have to kind of get over this control and learn to trust. But that person also has to know that, listen, this is my daughter, especially small children. Not my daughters can speak for themselves, they're good. I don't have to worry about all that. But these small children, that there are certain things that we want to implement because this is the way we want to raise our children. And if you're going to be a part of my daughter's life, there are certain things that I allow and there are certain things I don't allow. And I think having that conversation would have been able to put all those things on the table at first. But now the daddy, because like we said, this was for him to do. Now he's past that step, and now they got to reel it all back in and start over. Whereas if they would have had that conversation, she could have said, "Look," and maybe the girl would have been like, "Oh, I don't know. This girl wants too much. I don't want to be in this
And
situation.
you
I'm
have no
out."
control over that, right? You have no control over what he decides to do. He may have agreed with you in
But
that
he agreed.
moment.
And one thing,
But how many
he
of us
said, "Not
agreed
when
to
you're gonna do
stuff?
something and don't do it."
Listen,
Especially
how
to say
many of us,
he agreed
I'm
over
not saying
everything
it's
else.
right.
Right? No, I see what you're saying, but listen. In the email, she said we agreed on finances when we would have our child. You can't, if we have an agreement, you can't pick which things you want to agree on. So I feel like she has every right to be pissed. And if it was me, I'm never gonna see my daughter until we have to sit down because we're agreed on everything else. You can't choose what you want to change in our agreement. No, this is what the hell we agreed on. And now it's got a you're causing a mess because you chose the things that you agreed to and now you don't want to agree to for whatever reason. And why not? Why couldn't you just have to sit down? Why do you then I'm gonna get in my feelings? What you're trying to hide? What you're trying to hide? Why you didn't want me to meet her? Like we're gonna start thinking about all these things. And then that's where it comes into the children. Is she okay? Does she treat you nice? When you should already have that confidence in this woman being around your kid.
It's
I'm
difficult
I don't know
for
how
me
it would happen.
because I recognize, it's difficult for me because I recognize that we as humans, we can agree to something and we say things sometimes just to appease the other person. And
True, you know.
especially in a breakup, some things are just exchanged because we just wanted to make it easy. That does not necessarily mean that the other person is going to agree to it. Doesn't mean that that's what they're going to adhere to. In my situation, he was a Christian before I had my daughter. After my daughter, he was a Jehovah's Witness. So he was of a different he was of a different religion, right? So that made it a little bit difficult to handle and deal with. But I think that if she wants to figure out for herself, because it is always going to happen. The years are going to pass by and you're going to have an agreement and he's going to change it. You're going to think that everything is okay and he's going to come across and something's going to happen. It's not right, but how do you handle your own emotions? How do you keep control of yourself? I believe in protecting your peace. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you constantly have to go after him, arguing, constantly have to be like, well, we had this agreement, we had this agreement. No, how can I control this situation in the framework that I'm able to handle and I'm able to deal with? That
So,
I think it's also worth saying, though, you know, in any situation, not just this, sometimes we make agreements that seem great in theory, and then
Mhm,
the practicality of everything, it changes things. And I think being able to step back and then have that conversation, because in life things change, in life things shift, and we have to learn how to adapt. And I'm not saying that in this case I would be the one that's willing to adapt so much. But the reality is, I think she said she was off the island
yeah.
when she was away, or right. Things could have happened. Like maybe her gas ran out at the event and he works at the gas company. Like I'm just being like flipping her. Things happen, could happen. I think sometimes we get so married to what we want things to look like that we
mhm,
don't give ourselves the ability to look at the other opportunities. Although this has happened, it doesn't change the fact that they still need to have a sit down.
Yeah.
So while you can be angry, yeah, maybe it was perfect in theory, but the reality was this is where we're at. And I think when it comes down to co-parenting or any other type of relationship, we have to be willing to be a little bit flexible while still upholding our boundaries.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And co-parenting is not the easiest thing, especially when you're coming from a place where your children, you were married and your children are used to mom and dad together, and now they're separated, and mom, and maybe not even married, just being in a relationship. And this is what my children are so used to. And now they have to get to know another man, another woman, and then you're trying to blend the family so everything's healthy. Or you got the complete opposite where, and this happens so much, you automatically just do not like the ex-wife. You don't know her for shit. You know what I mean? You never ever, you only know what you've heard. You've never ever been face to face with her, but you don't like her because before your husband, she went with your cousin's sister's brother's uncle or somebody, and it didn't work out. You know, and in Bermuda, we all knew for not liking somebody because of what our friends do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Don't like somebody
already,
and don't even know
yeah,
why.
already it's a mess with this
Mm.
poor kid that just wants everybody to be happy and come to the birthday party and got along, right? So I think we do need to kind of be more receptive and open to when these new relationships happen. But I always will say we still have to kind of keep that control as a mother, because we know dads are best, dads are great, but we know how easy and laxy it can get with dads. You know, I forgot to give her medication. I forgot you only wash her once a week because she gets dry stuff. All these crazy things that we think about, especially when it comes to our daughters, because girls are so much harder. And then now we have another woman who's thinking, great, this can be a great, co-parenting relationship with her as well, and I get some help. But from off the bat, that gets thrown out because it already started off rocky. So now you gotta reel it all back in and be willing to start over and say, like, okay, where do we go from her, for her, for this kid? And I think that's the hard part to get past. We always think we're doing what's best for our kid, but really we need to be doing what's best for our kid. And what's best
Mm-hmm.
for our kid is for everybody to get along. And it's not a fantasy world, it happens. But it
Mm-hmm.
has to be these steps that take it there. And although you say, agreements do get broken, we're dealing with very delicate children. So we have to have agreements and rules. We have to have these things in place for these children to be able to grow up in these healthy environments. And we have to be open to other people coming in our children's lives, because now he has a new girlfriend. That girlfriend has a family. So now she could possibly have another extended family. So who are our children going around? We have to be able to kind of let go a little, but we still have to be able to know what the hell is going on with our kid. And up to
Mm-hmm.
today, my 25-year-old has to tell me all the time, Mama, I'm agreeing with my aunt kid, right? I'm like, oh, I'm still telling you what to do. Like, I'm all up in your business, girlfriend. And I'm 47, and my mama still calls me her baby. We're out to eat, and she's like, "Oh, this is my baby." I'm sorry, but you're still my baby. Those are your
Mm-hmm.
babies, and you're gonna protect them with everything in you. Hi, Carla, babes. So it's a hard situation for a mom to be able to let go and allow another woman to come into the child's life. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard, so it's
I
hard.
think for the woman who sent the email, I think what has happened has happened. Just foster a place where you can move forward in a positive direction.
Yes.
Being resentful or irritated is just gonna create confusion. And as we've already said, the child comes first. So we have to do what is best for the child, like you said. And at this point, a sit down just needs to happen. You can't change the fact that she's already been around this girl, already been around the girl's family, but how do we move forward? And then also have a conversation about what happens in the event that the things that have been agreed on go awry, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Quiet.
it's just so difficult as far as demanding a sit down with the other woman, because hold on, guys, my phone's about to die. Hold on one second.
No.
I know that's not like me.
Do we have a man on here? Because we could got his.
Can you hear me
I'd
now?
love to,
Yes, it looks like it.
because I would love to hear
Alberta
that.
Angelo.
Yeah, it would
So,
be
but
nice
is
to have a
she
male.
demanding a sit on when it was an agreement? Is she demanding it if him and her agreed to it? That's a question. I'm
I
I
don't think
think
it's I don't think it's a demand.
I think it's a demand if the new woman doesn't
mm,
choose to agree to have it.
that's a
Because
way to look at it.
if the new woman says no, I don't choose to wish her, then what do you do as a mom? What do? You can't. If he chooses to continue to date this young lady, what are you gonna do? Not send your child to go see it?
So real quick, Carla. Scenario is that it was a married couple. They divorced. It wasn't no drama. They just wanted to go their separate ways. They had agreements in place, and one of the agreements was that before they introduced their daughter to the new boyfriend and girlfriend, they would sit down and meet this person. So the mom's upset because the dad has taken the daughter to a family event before she got to meet the new girlfriend. And like I said, it was an agreement that that would happen. So now she's like, what do I do? Do I forgive? Do I, what? She doesn't know what to do at this point because he broke the agreement. So basically,
Come on
that's
up and give your. Come on up, Carla. Join
you
us.
want to join in. Send
Yeah,
me a
come here,
I'd
girl.
like to hear your answer.
yeah, I want to know what Crazy would say.
Yeah, I want to know.
Send
And I
me
want
the
her to
invite.
answer from the 20-year-old Carla to the Carla
Yeah,
today.
I want those
Like how we
scenarios.
answered. We gave two answers on this scenario, Carla.
Yeah, because the 20-year wouldn't have sat on. She wouldn't have
No,
took it.
it would have been. Let me find out where this girl lives.
And like, I'll be telling my daughter, don't eat her food.
Yeah.
Like, can you hurt?
You gotta call me. If you see her again, call me
Yeah.
right away and I'll come get you.
But
Okay?
yeah, it's hard.
She sent the request. Angel,
Okay.
just add,
Like,
you can
I
add
thought
it.
I see. She should pop up. You sound to be.
Okay.
Hi,
You
Liz.
all, I just opened the door from grocery shopping. Hey,
At least
so
you're camera ready.
Yeah,
You look cute.
listen, I listened to this and I giggled when you said what it was. But to be fair, maybe it's just my faith in people. I think people say whatever, then it's whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like they had this agreement. That was all fine and dandy in that moment, but then anything could happen, right?
Exactly.
Maybe this. I mean, he took her to. I'm trying to, as you all know, I'm a mama. I've got 3 children. For those of you who don't know me, I have 3 children, 13 to 22. And I'm thinking back to when Here's the interesting thing. I have never seen, my daughter's 22, and I have never seen her dating with another woman.
Right.
Never. And he's married or was married.
So you never knew the wife?
No, she had a built-up preconception of who I was. So when I asked to meet, she refused. But to be fair, I never had a doubt of my thing was this: as long as you don't disrespect my child, I'm okay. I don't need to meet you. He deals with you, not me, right? And I tell my children, in this context, my daughter, always be respectful, right? They can agree on what they want to call them. Like, I'm not saying just about nobody calls my children mama. My children will never call nobody mama but me.
Yeah.
But if she wanted to call her Auntie X, I had no problem with that. But the condition was that it had to be someone with whom he was serious about, not just somebody who you're taking to the family function, for example. But if it's just your girlfriend, you're steady, I don't have an issue with it. And I never ever ask my children, how does X treat you? Because if they were being ill treated, they would tell me. And then we'll have some smoke if needed be, and we'd have to deal with it. But I feel that, and people might be surprised because especially back then, I was a serious firecracker, but I'm realistic as well, and relationships come and relationships go. And I think when people trip out because someone moves on, I would encourage you to look inward and why. Because if you don't want that person anymore, who cares who they're with?
Right.
Now, I had a situation where my child was harmed while in the presence of a girlfriend, and she just didn't show any regard for my child. Yeah, I wanted to eat her alive. But even then, I never demanded that I had to meet her. But I also feel if you all are serious, why can't you meet the mother of your child? Why can't
But like I was saying, right, I don't think it was a demand because they agreed to it.
People break agreements?
Yes, people break agreements. But I also said, right, I'm just saying both sides of this. I also said, I think for me that it has a lot to do with the age of the child. And I say that because if you're around my child all the time, there's certain things I want you to know about my kid.
How old is the child?
Things. So Ron is young, like Ron 6. She said he was married for 4 years. They got married when she was pregnant. So let's go with Ron 6 or 7. Right? And they share the child. So I'm saying if you're around my child all the time, there's just certain things I need you to know. And we can all say, oh, well, the daddy should know. We know what men are like. And sometimes I'm not saying that he's not doing what, but men are not real good communicators. So he might know the rules. He might know what I want her to eat, what I want her to watch on TV, what time I want her to get in bed. I'm sorry, ask that mama. But he might not be communicating with her. So
like
she's there.
See it, this is the girlfriend.
My daughter's
like T.
What's that?
This is the girlfriend. This is, this is a long-term person. This is just someone.
You don't know that either. If you're around my kid and you're spending the night, in the same house as my kid, and you're with my kid, it's certain things I need you to know.
But hers,
I don't know.
I'll add a spin. I'll add a spin to it. I'm forward like that. I'll reach out to her. I will reach out to her directly, and I will say, hey, hey Tish, I'm Letitia. My name is Carla. I am, the mother of living Gerald, and can we talk? And her response alone will tell me all I need to know insofar as whether she's genuinely open to have a space where we can, vibe positively, or if she's got this attitude because something that has told her, because that happens too, right?
So what happens? We talked about this earlier, but so what happens if she's contentious with you, right? Like what happens if there is an issue between you and the girlfriend?
What's the next step?
Then me personally, I'm gonna park him, and I'm gonna say to him, this is your boo, so you need to facilitate this, and it will be a demand, because I heard you talk about demand. I don't know if it was in this context that came in as you talking about demand, but I would say to you need to facilitate for the three of us to sit down together, and she ain't gotta like me, but she will get back into what Andrew was saying. I want our child to be raised on the same wavelength.
Yes.
But to me, I if you can't sit on with his substantive partner, then is she really serious about being in his life?
And does she need to be around my kid?
And I'll get to that part, because I'm battling with 27 Carla versus 49 Carla. Probably even 46.
Because sometimes the 20 comes out, especially when we're talking about our kids.
Yeah,
so,
when it comes to the babies,
mature, but we're really like somebody will lose their head.
Hey,
I probably initially would say no, then she can't come or he can't come around, but the caller now honestly would never do that, because I do believe that the bond between the father and child, where the father is willing, is very important. And I think it's selfish for any parent to put themselves between that. And so that's where you're gonna have to suck it up. I'll tell you a quick story. With my daughter's daddy, I didn't speak to him for 10 years, but I made sure that he was involved in her life. He made sure he was involved, and it literally would be, I'm coming together, I'm coming up the hill now. I'll be like, okay, I will put her, when he came up, I will put her in the car, good afternoon, and that was it. No conversation for 10 years. But our parenting never skipped a beat, because the child was the priority.
Thanks.
Because Trium's wife now, we're great. If I had an issue and I needed to call about my daughters, I would call her. I wouldn't even call you. But before that, I didn't like any of his girlfriends. Not a one. But there was no, oh, you can't be wrong. As long as my daughter didn't come in and say, such and such did such and such, I was like, that guy ain't gonna let nothing happen to his children. Not a damn thing. But I didn't like, and it was like, I've never been that person to, I just don't like, I had my reasons, deep-rooted reasons. One of them, I was like, oh boy, I can't believe this person anyone learn my kids. But I knew he would never. And my kids had big mouths. So they're going to come in and they're going to tell mom everything that happened. And nothing ever happened where I had to say, yo, you know what I mean? But he knew me and I knew him. And he knew Andrew was there for her, and neither does he. But in this incident, and I keep saying it, that was the agreement. And we can always say, people go back on the agreements, people don't follow through. But when it comes to my kids, if you say you're going to do something, we're going to do it. So if that sits on needed to happen before you met my daughter, I'm going to look at you some type of way, because you knew this is what should have happened before you met my daughter. And I'm always going to be like, this girl really, or him.
I think
are we certain that she knew that? Are we certain that she knew?
Exactly, and that's the point.
Right.
That's the point.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Because like it's not on her. He's the one that owes me something.
He didn't tell her, and then that opens up another can of worms.
Right.
When he again. Like, why don't you want me to meet your new girlfriend?
But here's the thing.
Always go back to Diddy, and I think that's what needs to be addressed until new one steps over a boundary.
Right. And I don't know if you all discussed this, but honestly, like, I have one of my children's did this. His girlfriend, in her mind, I was ghetto, I was broke, I was this, I was that, I was mean, because that's what he set up for her. Right?
Real quick, tell your thought. If there's any guys on here, because I feel like I see some names popping up that may be a man, please let us know what you're thinking, what you're saying, your comments. Don't be afraid. We want to know what you men are thinking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Join the conversation.
Yeah, join the conversation.
But no, but we never know, because it happens, and it may not happen maliciously sometimes, right? But sometimes the worst thing a man wants is for his girlfriend and his ex to be friends.
Exactly.
And not because he's hiding anything, but just for example, you talked about bedtime, Angel, right? So Angel is my ex's new boo, and Angel, or reverse it, I'm Angel's ex's new boo, and Angel says that bedtime should be at 8:00. And I feel that bedtime should be at 8:00, but I don't know that because Daddy does bedtime at 10:00. But Carla and Angel never chance to talk so that we can see what wavelengths we are or are not on, right? It doesn't always have to be deviant from the other woman. It could be the man, and men get very uncomfortable because we've been raised that access and news should be animals.
Yes,
right?
We talked about that. Yeah,
but I also think it's difficult too. I think it's difficult too because we can't always control what's happening in Data's house, right? We would like to, we can tell him what rules we want, but at the end of the day, we don't have control. And I think about protecting our own peace. I'm not going to drive this at least 40-year-old Lakayan is not going to drive herself crazy thinking about what is happening in his house. Is he abiding by the rules? I can only deal with my child, right? So if I want her to go to bed at 8:00 and he's not doing that, then she don't go on school nights. You can have every weekend, but I will control the school night, right? So those are things I can put in place to be in control of because I can't control what happens at his house. So I appreciate wanting to have the conversation with the other lady, but what if she doesn't agree, right? It's just causing me more stress. So how can I gain control in the most beneficial way that is going to help my child, that it's streamlined, and also help me as well? Because oftentimes that person is not going to agree. And from my own situation, my child's wife, she did not necessarily care for my daughter in the way that I would have liked it to be. But I have to give him a lot of credit because when he recognized that they were not getting along, he stopped the every other week. But he would still parent, he would still be involved in her life, but he stopped the other every other week. That was just my situation, right?
But I have a problem with that.
But
I do too.
it stopped for a period. Listen, it stopped for a period of time. It didn't stop for a long period. It stopped for a period of time where they were able to manage what they needed to manage, right? But during that break period, he was still a parent. He was still doing what he needed to do. I was happy with it because at the end of the day, she's underneath my roof and I have control. But then she was able to go back and the situation was better, but that's another story. But all I'm saying is sometimes we don't have control over what happens in that person's household. What we do have control over, one, is our child. We don't have control over him, and we can shift the agreement.
Okay, wait. I have a fashion about that because I'm bothered. I can't let that go.
You see, I've been quiet most of this conversation, right? Because, like I said, it's a little too close to him.
No, because listen, he stopped seeing your daughter because your daughter and his wife.
He didn't stop seeing my daughter. He didn't stop seeing my daughter. He still saw my daughter.
But she just wasn't turned on to the.
we had an agreement that she used to go to his house on 1 week and then she'll be with me every other week. That was the agreement, right? So in the beginning of their marriage, I believe personally, now that I'm older, that she had some adjusting to do in becoming a stepmother.
So she didn't have any children.
She didn't have any children. And she hadn't had from my understanding, remember they're a different religion now. So from my understanding, this was like her first real relationship type of thing, right? And I believe also he had just come out of a tumultuous situation with myself, and I'm still in beast mode. So I believe she didn't quite, and she was a foreigner, so she didn't fully have the full picture and the full understanding of everything that was happening, right? So here I am, this blanket wife coming in, trying to be all glorious, and now every other week I'm in control of this young child, 5, 6, 7 years old, right? And I believe that she had difficulty in how she was able to manage that, her understanding of it. And he recognized that they needed some work to do before she came in on a week-to-week basis again. So he took the step to ask me if he could take a break from having her for the full week, right? And he still saw my daughter. He still was an active parent, but she just didn't go down there for the full week, for a little while. And then she started to go back. She used to spend time like on the weekend. Let me be clear, she would go on a weekend. It was like they gradually got to that particular point, if that's the best
where it was a
way to
full
put it.
week. So they scaled it back, and then it was.
And I appreciate that, actually. It first the way it came off, but I do appreciate that because it's given her, the stepmama, some grace too. And I mean, an average mama would say. And
this is the 40-year-old okay and answering.
But I'll say this to you. You said something that my mom taught me. I had Kiki at 27, and so she was about 2. And I'll never forget, she's done her dance, and she needed soy milk back then. And he was given a regular milk, and I almost lost my mind, right? And my mom said something to me that I stand with me all these years later. And my mom said, listen, you cannot control what doesn't happen outside of your home. And stop thinking, although you would like to hope that he would do things identical to what you would do, he doesn't have to, as long as he's keeping her safe. So if he wants to give her milk as opposed to soy and it's not making her sick, then sis, suck it up unless you want to buy the soy and send it down there. And she's like, you can't tell, and that's the demon she taught me about expectation. Right?
Yeah, managing expectations.
Yeah, I said that. You know, Dad's a great, and I have a great father for my kids, but that mom instinct is something totally different. You know what I mean? And I know some men, it may be different from a man because there's a lot of men out there raising their kids without mom, right? So he has to know how to be that father and that mother. But when I think it's a mom and dad involved, that mom feeling is just different. But she has to tell me all the time, and I can still hear him saying, "Girl, take it easy. Girl, take it easy." Like, look, when it came to my kids and still to today, I just wasn't right in my head, you know. And now I got this grandson. I had to send Carl a message the other day. He fell off a bike, he's busted his lip. Carl said, "I don't know what to tell you. My boys never got hurt like that." And he's forever having himself. And I'm like, this control thing, like, oh, I'm gonna keep this little boy safe. And very well, I can't. But in my head, I'm like, he's gotta stop hurting himself. He's gotta stop falling down. So I have to learn, and I had to learn with him. Now I have to learn with my grandson that yes, we can't control everything, but I will always say there are some things that just need to be in place for children, and it can't be totally different in mom's house and totally different in dad's.
It can be
at some point.
It can be. It honestly can be, because for my situation, they were of 2 different religions, right? So that meant that their belief system was completely different. And at the end of the day,
wait a minute, so I'm understanding, they were 2 different religions, or you and them were 2 different religions?
I was a Christian and they had a different religion. Their
Okay, you and
belief system was completely different than mine. He had with her, right? And so at the end of the day, he loved his daughter. I could never take that away from him. And she loved her father, right? So I had to find out how I can control my emotions, how I can teach my daughter what I wanted her to know and the rules that I wanted her to know. And also, he was going to teach her whatever he wanted to teach her. Sometimes I had to counteract whatever he taught her. But at the end of the day, that was the situation I was in, and I had to work with it. I felt I had to learn that my peace is important. And at the end of the day, I'm either going to drive myself crazy and give in to him, because he would just say, I want my daughter full time because you're just not sane. You're just not acting right. You're irrational, right? And so I had to calm myself down and become the best parent while she was with me. And that meant me being rational, being emotional. I had to put that in my back pocket, wait to the week when she wasn't with me, and then have the conversation and go off the deep end with my parents, my friends, everything else, right? Sorry.
This the week off thing, and I think this is where, because I'm raising my children by myself for so long. The thought of having my children week off gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like
I don't know that I could do it either.
Yeah, I get that. I split the week. I split the week with Trim because I worked.
So you're
weekends.
saying you split the whole, like,
So
yeah.
in the beginning,
I can't.
when she was younger, it wasn't the whole week. So what we used to do is she would go to his house for, let's say that's his week, but every Wednesday she was with me. Every Tuesday she was with him. It didn't matter whose week it was, that was guaranteed day, right? So I was still able to see her during that week, and I was still able to interact with her. I was that mom who was still at the school every other day. I was that mom who still, was very much active. So I don't want it to be like, oh, I never saw my child for a whole week. But at the same time, that was the arrangement. And you can have control over everything. You just can. And it's going to drive you crazy if you try.
It depends on the situation. Because for me, we split the week. So I had my daughters Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then they went to him from Friday and came back to me on Sunday because I worked, right? But I lived in St. David's. He lived in Hamilton Parish. So I picked him up from school every day, even when I didn't have him that night. I picked him up from school. I would take him lunch. Like, I still basically saw my kids every day, even if I didn't have them that night. So for me, I think the control thing was still there because I was like, I didn't care who was at his house. And maybe now when I look back, I'm like, oh, you're a little crazy. I would still get up, go get my daughters, go in the house, help get my daughters ready for school. Like, it didn't matter. I was still actively involved. And even though whatever we went through, we stayed connected like that.
So you better dress. You better dress your children. You better dress your children.
I would walk in that house.
He was married.
No. But listen,
he was single.
I can't really relate. We have a strange relationship. Me and Jason and Tria and Kay be sitting on at the house, like we are a blended family. Yeah. We are a blended family.
Angel, you have boundary issues now. I'm about to spank you on your head because you have boundary issues. But single or not.
Maybe because I can remember one situation, right? I was laying with my eldest daughter, and I just walked in the house, and the girlfriend was laying on the couch. She was so afraid. I'm like, "What's my daughter?" She's like, "Next door."
And this is where we were saying,
you were like, "Something wrong with you." I had no boundaries. I was happy different. I had no boundaries when it came to my children. I just say, Carl, I still don't. My eldest has to tell me all the time, Mom,
but there has to be, because the other thing is, right, and like for me, I'm always now looking forward because I'm got these luck, right? And it's how would we want them to act in these situations when they become adults?
Right, well,
so I mean, no judgment to each his own. And when I tell you, I'm raising my children 365 days of the year for the last 12 years, like at least. I'm talking from that perspective of hands-on parenting. But if they was to go and be with their dad and their significant other, that's not my, unless there's something that's bringing them in danger, even be picking them up every day and stuff, I wouldn't do that because
I had a choice. He had a bike, I had the car, so that was our agreement. You know, that's what worked for us. And now we're still a blended family.
Yeah.
Like I said, we all just came back from the UK.
Different.
We're still a blended family, and that's it.
But walking in the house and all of that, like we would have problems. We would have, like, let's just say if I was her on the couch, we would have problems because.
Well, I'm not. That's the 15 years ago, Angel. This Angel no, gotcha, that, right?
But I'm breaking up with somebody.
If he still had that kind of access.
But that's just how it was. It wasn't like I wanted to be with him or he wanted to be with us. We were just very much still raising our children, and that's how we done it. And there were times when I crossed the line. Like I should have never just walked in the house, the girl's name, the couch. I didn't know she was there. If I did, I wouldn't have done it. But I did. I was looking for my daughter, and that's all I saw. I just wanted to see my daughter, right? So there are definitely things I wouldn't do. Right. Now that I did then. Or I look back and say, damn it, you're really like on your head. But as far as picking the kids up and me having them and him coming to mine and him having a me getting there for dinner, I would never regret that because although me and him have our serious differences, we've managed to raise our children and still raise our kids together. And
right.
now we have a son.
The children are at the center of it all.
It worked for us. And now he has a wife who really doesn't care. She just as in it as me. We're still our family.
Because the beauty is that you had someone. The beauty is that you had someone who was willing to work with you under your rules, under what you wanted for your child, right? But that is not necessarily the norm in all situations, right? And you're not going to find all the time that father is going to want to adhere to what you have to say. And if your daughter, for instance, if she comes across a situation with her child and the father's like, no, this is what I want to do, you can't come to the house, ABCD, then what advice do you give to her? Because of course, yes, will change, but what advice? And I think that was the point that Carla was making. You know, she's looking at her children, what advice she's going to give to her children, not what happened to her.
Well, I'm going to say this. Zoya had Zace at the same age I had her, and she's totally different from me because she is a totally different person than I am. Back then, I was a total firecracker. You couldn't tell me nothing. And then it came to my children, you better not even look at them some type of way. Zoya's very much different from me. She's very quiet. She's very humble. She's very like, I want peace. Where that's not where I was at. So for her, she totally is in a different space. And probably she is at the space where she tells me, no, Mom, you got some things. You were really crazy. So I doesn't so much remember. But she's able to pick out the great parenting skills I have versus my mama was crazy and I'm not going to do that. So for her, it's been beneficial to see like the nerds and the do's and the don'ts, which makes her probably a better mother at the age she is now than I was. Because she definitely learned from, and she remembers like, Mama, you were crazy. And it was not about wanting to be with him. It was just like, I didn't know how to not be with my kids when I wasn't with them. I didn't know how to her daddy. I didn't know that. I would worry myself crazy. Did he pack the water? Did he give him an extra snack because I got after school? Like, oh my God, today's gym day. I could not separate. I couldn't. I was just that mom. But for
I can admit I will probably struggle. I would struggle. I've had my children 24/7 since the day they came out, like because I homeschool. I've never even had a break. They've never slept over anybody's house. So if I was faced with this situation and having to create an environment for my kids, I would absolutely struggle. I have never not put them to bed. You know what I mean? So I don't know what I would do. And if it was open for me to come over and put my children to bed, I probably would, simply because of the relationship that I have and the access that I've had to my children. Like, I've never had a break,
being in a
you
different
know?
country from my children, I struggle. My children are 20
Mm-hmm.
and 25, and I'll be walking around this house crying, calling them, I miss you so much. I struggle. So
Angel, I was just about to say that because Amy goes 14 December and Johnny goes 18 in March, right? Kiki is 22. And I was looking at Johnny and he's got sideburns and a mustache, and I started to cry. And my children's always like, oh, she's at it again. And then like, what's your problem? And I'm just like, because I'm going, one more, and then I'm not have no more babies.
I feel your pain.
It bothers me.
I only have one. Listen, you guys talk about crying and all of that, right? I wasn't raised with my mom. So I actually used to say I'm addicted to my daughter, to raising my daughter, right? Because everything was my child. She used to travel with him for the summer. And there were times where she used to go away for the whole summer. I would cry the whole summer. The whole summer. And it used to honestly drive me crazy. And I had to get to a point. It wasn't probably until maybe in her teens that I was like, okay, Kyan, get over it. And I went through a transition where I was in that just didn't curve. When my daughter wasn't with me for the week, I was like, party, I'm going out. This is my week. But when she was with me, I was like, okay, daughter, let's go. Come on. I'm this perfect little mom. But before that, people didn't see. If you knew me, you'd be like, Kyan, get over it. The girl is with her daddy. Everything is going to be okay. I used to cry, yes. But I was driving myself crazy because I didn't have that control. But again, that obsessiveness came because I didn't have my own mother, right? And that comes back to having the emotional, being aware of where you were actually at, because I felt like I was projecting onto him issues that I truly should have dealt with myself.
Yeah, my kids say that. They say that I overparent at times. Like, Kiki is really like, lady, like, hug you, kiss you, like, what is your problem? I'm like, but I will, because I have a tumultuous relationship with my mom. And so for me, I don't want my children to ever feel that they had a tumultuous relationship with me. And I also realized, like, when Kiki moved out to her place for uni, I was so mad at her initially. I was so upset. But I'm like, nah, you left him at 18. Why are you trying to clip her wings when you flew so broadly at 18? Right? But I told, and then it's like, when I'm 18, mama, I will. And I'm just like, you can stay with her. You
Felt
can
like
stay
they
with
were
her.
breaking up with you.
Yes, girl.
I told them,
I'm in Jamaica.
all I'm asking is that let me parent to where I make sure you have the tools so that you can fly when you're on your own. And so I always have to look inwards, because I'm like, how is it you're trying to hold on to these children when at 18 you didn't answer to nobody, sis?
Mm-hmm.
But
I think as mothers, we also have to, like you said, you have to look inwards. We have to be sure that we're not projecting, right? Like I said at the beginning of the call, like I'm really antsy about anybody being around my children because of what I went through, the trauma that I went through as a child, right? And I have to be mindful as a mother that I'm not overprotecting them, that I'm not sheltering them, even though I want to. Like, I would shield them from anything if I could. But at the same time, like, I think it just brings up that we have to focus on our own healing, so that we are good parents, right? And that's men and women. I think especially when children are introduced to the picture, we have to be mature enough to step back and really analyze how we are impacting our children. Because the traumas that we experience, right? Like you're talking about, like, he not being raised with your mama, like the things that I went through, Carla, the things that you went through, even you, Angel, like that all gets perpetuated generation to generation if we don't take a step back and take ownership of the trauma that we have and our healing. And a lot of that then will translate into how we treat the other woman, how we treat the daddy, and all of that. So I mean, this is a really good topic, because it's not just one dimensional,
Mm-hmm.
and there has to be ownership for everybody, right?
I think I need to write in to Keisha. I think I need to write in. I think I need to write in to Keisha.
Make up the email. My it's from you.
I'm so sitting and laughing, right? Because my daughter's never met any male. Okay, the girls, but she's only met one person, and that's because they forced themselves to meet her. Okay, they approached her and was like, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm talking to your mom, ABCD, right?" And I stopped speaking to, and he wasn't even somebody I was dating. He was just a friend, and I stopped speaking to that
Just
person.
railed off
We
and
stopped speaking
introduced
for a
himself.
couple of months.
How new?
I was like, "How
No
dare
way.
you?" Listen,
Yeah.
my daughter is 20. Serious.
We'll find
My
in the mail
daughter's
for your daughter.
23. 23
I don't even want
and has
Carlos running up on my children. What are you talking about? Every time every other month, like I'm getting irritated. Like, what are you saying?
I was talking having a conversation with this guy. We were really best friends, right? And he kept asking me, "We're just best friends, we're not dating. How come I can't meet your daughter?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, it's not that you're not worthy to meet her, but no one's meeting my daughter. I don't care who you are, no one's meeting my daughter." Anyway, it was cup match. And he saw my daughter and he approached her and he was just like, "Hey, I'm so and so." And she was about 13, about 13. And he's just like, "Hey, I'm saying so." He didn't have a long conversation with her. It was just short. And then he laughed and she called and she's like, "Oh, I met so and so."
What?
Listen,
Yeah.
I let it. I let it, right?